Welcome to JustWannaQuilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. This is Elizabeth Townsend-Gard, your host, and I'm a law professor at Tulane University Law School and a faculty fellow at the A.B. Friedman School of Business at Tulane. And I just want to quilt. So today we're talking with Cely. She's one of my very, very favorite people. She's a quilter. She's she's an artist. She teaches quilting. She's got a great philosophy. I live by her philosophy. I'm so honored to have her on the show. I can't wait for you to get to know her.
My name's Cely Pedescleaux, but I'm better known by Cely. And I call myself a quilting fiber artist and a culture bearer. I tell stories mostly with my quilts.
Your quilts are amazing. So I'm a huge fan of yours. You're like my hero. I think you're the most amazing thing on the planet. And we've interviewed you twice. You had some sound problems. So we're going to pretend like we haven't interviewed you and start from the beginning. So I'm going to ask you a question.
Let's do a quick sound check.
What's your first memory of someone sewing or quilting in your life?
We want to talk about talking. Does that sound good?
You want to talk about what? I'm sorry. First, I had a aunt.
I'm saying,
let's
make
mom.
The
Her
things
name
we
is
want to
Ina
talk
Spencer.
about. I can totally hear you. Can you hear me?
She crocheted a lot, but she
yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
She would have these little pieces of.
What are we totally
sewing together?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, no,
we were saying what we could totally talk about.
And later on, I found that she was quilting.
Something I can,
and I kind of picked that up. I took a long line of seamstresses. The average quilter. But I never really did clothes, but I did like kind of pieces of material and not putting them together. I think that's my probably where I got my passion. There are just a lot of people who just strip quilting and crazy to quilt. But they're not worried about perfection. They just want to give their quilts to their family, their friends to keep, or some are just trying to do some different things in quilting. And it seems now that if you don't have the biggest gadgets, or you're not into long arming, or you're not into precision, that you're almost kind of ignored or a little more demeaned. I started quilting maybe about
that's really interesting.
Yeah,
let's talk more about
then
that's really interesting.
Just kind of
also, you have an upcoming show, don't you?
You need to cut me I have a show now that's at Drive at the called the Myrtle Banks Building in the Drive Marketplace on Aretha Castle Haley. And it's been up for a couple of months. It's coming down now after White Linen Night. It's on the third floor. It's still open at the same time that the marketplace is open. If you go to the Drive Market, material, and you parking lot in the back, parking lot was really the front, and you go to the back, there's an elevator, and it'll take you to the third floor, and you can see the quilts there. I have 22. Edith has 2, and Susan Charles has 2. I guess everybody in my family it really looks nice there.
And we went to it. Didn't we go to it when
got me the G-Bend, right, when the G-Bend ladies were here. If I could do over 20
and also I think when Lyric came in the
Lyric, when Lyric came, I really...
Yes. Okay, so we're going to start with a very important first question, Cely.
Research and
for preservation purposes, tell me your name.
Really came around when my daughter was in high school, and she had to do a project, and she had to go to Tulane's library. So I had to take her up. I said, well, while I'm taking her up, I may as well do something. And at that time, they had a place where they had these old books. And I sat on the floor and just took books off the shelf because I didn't have a library card because we, belonged to Tulane. So I just took the books off the shelf and read them while I was there. I really looked through the pages. But then I started getting some interesting things. One was the old cookbook. And it was saying how the enslaved people would take the cloth that they would use to strain the berries for wine. Well, then I realized, and they said they supposedly were using it, and I thought about, all right, that's a way of having cloth with color. And then there was another architectural book that talked about enslaved people having patches on their pants and stuff for when they, came to help with the building and so forth. So that got me really into now, I need to know about these people. And so I started just searching for African designs and so forth. And some
so
of the
your
things
work
that
is I was going to say your work is a really interesting comment about your work. So prolific, and you've had commissions and shows, and you're a thing. You're totally that you don't just keep making the same thing. Your quilts, you quilt everything imaginable, every material imaginable. I know the last set of material. The last time I saw you work, you were working with was it coffee bags that you were using as material in your work?
Right. I use coffee. I love to tell stories with my quilt, and a lot of them are African proverbs or some just. But I like crazy. Not like crazy things. I like what I see, and coffee was one of them. And all these coffee bags. I mean, what you do with coffee bags? Well, for me, you make quilts with coffee bags. And so
right.
I have one called free trade called coffee. One's just called coffee, and the other one is called the results of too much coffee. And that is full of coffee bags all just thrown in there. It's really crooked, but it's like that on purpose, because if you had a couple of bags of coffee, by now you kind of jittery. And so I like doing things like that. Now, that's another thing which I need to be careful. I've been taking the plastic grocery bags, fusing them and using them with cloth to make a piece. So now I'm into cycle. Well, I started crocheting some, and I said, crocheting is not my thing. I'm a quilter. And so the idea came to me by accident. My grocery bag got too close to my eye, and I said, parchment paper and eyes will work. So now, and I don't know too. I love New Orleans, and I love the colors, and every piece I do will have some type of embellishment, because I love beads, I love sequins. As you notice, I will use any piece of material. I love the costume materials. It's there for us to use, and there's no reason why we shouldn't use it.
Right. So a couple of things. I think sort of why I adore you so much. First, your work is amazing. Second, you are an incredible combination of, you're an art quilter, you do regular piecing sometimes, you do a ton of charity quilts, you do community quilting, you do all of it in this really elegant way. And so we were talking about at the beginning, you wanted to talk about the average quilter and sort of this shift to perfection that have you seen that over time, this? Tell me about I think about your philosophy a lot when I quilt, which is don't freak out if the points don't match, right? Just keep going. It's going to be okay. So tell me a little bit more about that, sort of that, your philosophy, your thoughts, what quilting has become or what it is, or the regular quilter, the average quilter.
Right. Nobody has ever given anybody a quilt back because the points didn't match. I'm sure of that. But you got to be free, and there's no right and no wrong. If you decided you wanted to put 3 shades of purple together, and sometimes a pink might get messed up in that, that's gonna be fine. I mean, you're free to do what you want. Don't let other people, dissuade you into and tell you, this really has to be cut on the diagonal, or this really you have to file the bias on this or this. Just do what you want to do. Eventually, if certain things don't work for you, you're going to find that out. Now, truthfully, people will help you say, well, this is the reason why you shouldn't do such and such. And you can say, oh, yeah, so, but no, maybe I wanted to be out of shape. But just be free, because everybody now, every parent has to meet. Wait, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love other people's work, because I, myself, is not that professional type of person, but I love to see those beautiful quilts. But in the meantime, if that's not you, you don't have to. Don't get stressed out about it. Do what you do until you get to that point, because if you quilt long enough, you are going to get to that point where all of your things will match. Yeah. And if you start out being afraid because, oh, this is not matching, so I think I'm just going to put it on the side, you'll never finish anything. So if you really like fabric, you figure, I like quilting, well, go ahead and quilt. Go ahead and quilt.
Well, I think it's so, because you run a group. Yeah, the Beecher Group. Tell us a little bit about the Beecher Group, because the group really have your philosophy as the core of it, and you all put on a show every year. And it's one of my very favorite shows. Is everybody's working at their own level, and there's just a lot of love, and everybody's just working as they can, judging, which I really like about all of it.
Right. We started off. I have a cousin, Lydia, and Lydia always wants someone to do something for her, and she never wants to do anything for herself. Lydia said, "You got to get me a quilt." I said, "You're going to have to learn how to quilt, because I'm not doing that." She said, "Well, then you have to teach me. We're going to meet at church Saturday, and we're going to quilt." I said, "Well, Lydia, tell me this." She said, "That's what we're going to do." Well, Lydia showed up. Teresa showed up. My mother came with me, and they brought somebody else, and that's how the group started. That's how the group started, teaching them how to quilt so they can make their own quilt. And in the meanwhile, when other people came, they said, "Well, I really want to see what y'all doing, but if I'm not that precise." So we started off with, don't worry about how precise you just put this 9-patch together. And if all the parts don't meet, it's okay. Do your 9-patch. And we started off like that. And as people started saying, "Oh, y'all look like y'all having fun just putting that material together. I watch TV, and you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to have this." I said, "No, you don't. You don't have to have anything." When people started quilting, half the time they didn't even have. They took the threads from old clothes and used for threads. You don't have to have all that. So we started off very simple with scissors and the scissoring ruler and cutting board. Well, naturally we got into rotary cutters. We grew along with the art. We grew along with the art and with the technology. But our core is, you don't need anything but scissors, thread, and some material to quilt. That's all you need. You may want to.
How long has the Beecher Group been?
We've been together for about 20 years. What happened is, everybody loved the quilt shows. We love the quilt shows, and people say, "Oh, my quilt will never be in a quilt show." So we decided to do our own quilt show. We don't do our quilt show. We do our quilt show just to show our work. So it doesn't matter what your work is. We do it to show our work. So then people started kind of liking it, like, "Oh, no matter what I do, I can actually have people come and look at my quilt." And that's how we started. We just show our work. It doesn't matter where you are. If we have a few people who only got, say, maybe a 9-patch, maybe they were so proud of the 9-patch because they got it done, and it might be maybe only 4 squares, So, and so that was the fun, that they could actually put the piece that they've worked on so hard, and people will come to see it with no judging, we don't, done with this. We don't deny any quilts. Whatever you put in, that's what goes in. Now we're to the place where we have to kind of limit the size you put because we have about 60 quilts with about 30 of us because we started doing different things with challenges and mystery quilts and so it's and everybody comes because we have one of my quilt members, Jean, has been with us since the beginning, and she's never made a quilt. She says she just comes to be with the people and to talk, and she'll thread needles or whatever.
I like that.
So it's right. So we have a community that just comes to just sit around and fellowship and listen to the stories. And in the meanwhile, Jean has bought every gadget. She's the gadget lady. She's bought every gadget you can think of, even though she doesn't quilt. So it's like our own tea party. It's our own tea party.
It's great. Well, and it's got such an feeling. The thing that your group does is you make quilts for the foster kids in New Orleans. Is that right?
Right. And what we do is we have a free quilt group. It's free. We have no dues we are a group because we don't have a president. We just have a facilitator. We don't have any rules, so we're a group. But what we do is, in order to be a part of the group, you've got to make at least, really you have to make one quilt. I talk everybody into doing more quilts for foster care. So every year we give the New Orleans foster care system quilts at Christmas for their Christmas party. Because when kids go from foster care, they have to leave everything they have when they're going to another place. And they're only allowed to take a few things, but they're allowed to take their quilts. So the only thing they have from the previous home they were in would be their quilt. Last year we did 86 quilts that we gave to foster care. We don't always know how many kids are in foster care, or there's some that will be transitions. As a matter of fact, this year we gave a few to transitional. What that means is they're leaving foster care, they're going out on their own. So they're usually about 18 years old and they're putting them up in apartments. So we try to do bigger quilts for transitional kids also. And we kind of helping our own. We are hoping to get more so that we can give to the policemen when they have to go pick up children for different reasons or pick up people. But we haven't gone into that as much as with the foster care system. And the Louisiana, New Orleans foster care system, Louisiana Department of Health and Human Services, they send a representative over to our party, and we have a big show and tell and show the quilts, and they take the quilts with them and they give the kids the quilts at the party. They invited us to the party. I think about 3 because everything is it's private. You can't take pictures of kids, or you don't know who the kids are. So we don't publish. We just published what we do. Now, one year I was at Jazz Fest, and a lady came up to me and she asked me, was I with the group that gave quilts to foster care? I said, yeah. She said, well, these are my 2 adopted kids, and they have your quilts. And they were telling me how they took their quilts and thanking for quilts and they would tell me they knew more about the quilts that we gave them than we did. So that just kind of like, all right, I don't want 2. I need 4 quilts from everybody now.
Really cool. Now, tell us a little bit about Jazz Fest, because you've been at Jazz Fest for quite a while, and you got honored this year. So tell us a little bit about what is Jazz Fest and what you do at Jazz Fest.
Okay, well, the New Orleans is Jazz and Heritage Festival, and what they do besides the music, they try to uphold the heritage of the area. So they'll have craftsmen, like they have paper mache, like for the paper mache Mardi Gras. They'll have Mardi Gras Indians. They'll have carvers. They have boat makers. Well, I do quilts. I demonstrate quilting. When I first started with Jazz Fest, I didn't start demonstrating it. I started doing interviews. We had a panel of Ifam Arson. Ifam, unfortunately, deceased. She was a weaver, and I can't think of the lady. She was does silk. She does silk from the worm all the way to the cloth, and I did quilting. And we did a panel, or talking about our different crafts and how it's related and how it's not related, and where it fits in our community. And that's how I started Jazz Fest. And then the Jazz and Heritage Foundation, it was the senior course. Well, anyway, I did a couple of workshops at the Jazz and Heritage building for the Council of Aging. And so through them, and then the Jazz and Heritage, we did a couple of others. So I've been doing a couple of workshops for the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage. So, and you know what else they don't do anymore? For Satchmo Fest. Every year for Satchmo Fest, they would have a Satchmo art show. And I got honorable mention one year. I did a thing called What a Wonderful World, which you've probably seen because it's been shown in a couple of museums around. And so Jazz Fest, being that I was kind of out there, they asked me to demonstrate. Well, we started off just small demonstrations and just demonstrate. And we decided I needed to have more input with people, not just, come in and look around and see what I was doing. So we started having people to sign their names and where they come from on a quilt. We do 4. We try to do one a day where we wind up with more because I've never said that actually counted, but where people from all over the world, they'll come in and sign their names and where they're from. And now people know that they come in and look for the quilt for the following year, see if they can find their name. And so it's become an interactive thing where people feel like, oh, I'm part of Jazz Fest. They come in and sign and talk. So, matter of fact, last year I said, y'all must have enough of these quilts. Y'all might want me to do something else. I said, no. So the Jazz and Heritage Foundation has put the quilts in their archives, and they're monitoring and looking at all the people from all over the world who actually come and sign the quilt.
That is very cool. So you're at Jazz Fest every year, and that is an important part of sort of getting the sort of message out about quilting.
Right. Yeah.
You do
Yeah, this year was my, 2003, yeah. And what they did, they had commemorative Jazz Fest quilts. So they took some of the quilts out of archives. And usually I kind of show my work. Well, this year they took quilts out of archives from the different years, and that was the display pieces along with a couple of my quilts.
Cool.
What I'm saying, my quilts, I mean
fun.
My art size quilts, right.
Right, your art size quilts, right. Now, I've been to your house, and I know you've got a studio that's amazing, and you've also got a room filled with quilts. So a couple and then tell me about like your work. When do you work? What's your you work at night, right? Tell me a little bit about your process of working.
I know last night I came at 10 o'clock and I finished this little project. For some reason, I'm a night person. I really get wound up about 10 o'clock at night, and I will quilt till about 3 o'clock in the morning. So I get up after 10 and then do what I have to do. Sometimes I got to mop the floors, sometimes I got to wash the clothes, and which gets done very fast, and then I get back into studio. I'm a constant quilter. There's just so much stuff comes into my mind, and I try to finish one project before I start the next. I promise you, I've never done that. Yeah.
I was going to say, really? Interesting.
No, I've got about 4 or 5 different project study. I make these jackets that you use sweatshirts to make the jackets. But what I've been doing with the buttons, I take the bottle tops from the water bottles and the soft drinks bottles. I put a hole and I run fabric, I run thread through it, and I use those for buttons instead of using regular buttons. And then sometimes to close the hole, I might put Mardi Gras beads, I don't go buy beads. Mardi Gras beads, you use Mardi Gras beads. So that's something else, I'm doing. So when I need downtown, I will work with the plastics and the water bottles and the Mardi Gras beads. I love New Orleans. I like to say I love the colors. I love Mardi Gras. I can recycle the beads. I'm trying to. I am
the
trying
beads are
to
great,
think
and
of a name.
Yeah.
Well, what I did get. I'm an undercover Mardi Gras Indian.
Yes, you are.
Clarice Harrison Nelson, the Mardi Gras Indian queens, each did in beadwork a square, and it spells out Queen's Rule, and they gave me the squares to put together for them, and that was in the at the McKenna Museum, and it's in the book. One of Clarice's books. So I got a chance to also really be involved in some of the work of the Mardi Gras Indians.
That's very cool. And they're a very big deal here, the Mardi Gras Indians. That's a very big part of New Orleans. Now, when I interviewed you before, we also talked a little bit about Katrina. What role did Katrina play in your quilt life? Like, how did that alter who you are, or how did it impact on sort of what happened to you, to your quilting world?
Okay, Katrina, that was a devastating time, but it also turned out to be a good time for me. And the reason I said that, the children at the Reliance Center in Texas, they drew with crayon, and they drew their experiences with how they were feeling, all of this traumatic things. Well, the ladies, some ladies collected all of their drawings, and we had it, and they put them on fabric. Well, I put them on fabric. They gave them to me. We put them on fabric, and I made the Katrina Kids quilt. I made 3 quilts, and someone else made 1 quilt. Well, from that, they were trying to raise money to help Katrina victims, so I got to go to the New York Arts Club on Gramercy Street in New York, to do a talk, and they displayed the Katrina Kids quilts, and then the CAC in New Orleans picked them up. Well, in the meantime, while I was doing that, I was also trying to raise money for our church, what was totally destroyed. So some of our church, other sister groups, got me together, and I did some quilt shows and sales, and talking about quilting and experiencing quilting in Colorado and Melford, Connecticut. So, all around. So that was a really, time, like a busy time. And it was a good busy time, because I don't do anything about Katrina anymore. I'm still shell-shocked with storms. Right after Katrina, I worked with some kids at a school, and every time it rained or it thundered, everybody got, want to get under the desk, so I thought, now I do no more quilts about Katrina. But what really happened with this is, because of some of the work I did, one of our church members asked me if I'd like to have a studio. And I hope you don't have to bleep it out. But I said, Carol, I don't have the pot nor the window. How I'm going to have a studio? She said, I'm serious, Cely, I'm serious. Well, an anonymous donor gave them the blueprints and to build me a studio. And I was able to put the windows and design it, how I wanted to. I made sure I had one wall, one where the door is. There are no windows because I need a display wall. So there was an anonymous donor that had the studio built for me.
And I've been to your studio. It's remarkable. It's in your backyard. You have your house, and then you have a huge studio. You go in the middle of the night to do all of your quilting. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, yeah. It's a good thing they didn't put a trolley back here because I'd never go inside.
It's very funny. All right, so you were also at our conference. You were on, so the Tulane put together a conference called Create. It's our second year. It's this huge, ridiculous conference with lots of fancy people from all over the place, industry people, sports people, and we had a panel on quilting early in the day, and you would be part of it. Thank you. Appreciated that so much. Tell me about your experiences on the panel, and what did you think about talking about your work in an academic space, which I know you talk about your work all the time, but what was that like?
That was very interesting. First, I learned a lot of stuff being on the panel. And I learned a lot about the manufacturers, the distributing, the copyright with Fonz, with Mary Fonz, and
Mary
trying
Fonz,
to get her mother's right. It was very, but
right.
but what I really like, I got to get, because all these people are very prestigious people. I get to talk about the little people like me who living off of living off our pensions, that really don't have that kind of money to really invest in things like that, and for us to be comfortable in the quilt world, because I can only I can only afford, like, say 5 yards of material. I can't afford 20 yards of material, and 1 month I have to buy the material, the next month I have to buy the batting. And there's so many of us like that people overlook us. And I got a chance to talk about the industry in mind with pricing, and with, them trying not to make us uncomfortable because we can't afford all of these gadgets and still feel valuable in the quilting world.
Right. Right. I feel like over your lifetime, you've seen it get more commercial, more focused on the gadgets and the fancy machines and things like that. Do you feel that's shifted
right? Because
as you?
I find, okay, you're right. There's so much, there's so much, so much out there, and then people who seem to look down on hand quilting, and people who don't have it said, "Oh, you hand quilting that?" Yes, it does take long, but sometimes I can hand quilt faster than I can machine quilt. I didn't use the sewing machine for a long time, and sometimes when I need to do something, I get it done faster by hand, because if I have to change the tension, the thread breaking, all that kind of stuff, I said, let me finish this by hand. But they seem to look down on that, and they seem to look down on, oh, why you didn't buy such a brand? The different brands with Tula Pink and all the other brands. Why didn't you buy that brand? Well, no, I can't. I still like to quilt, but I can't always afford that brand. And and I find people, like, they'll look at your quilt. Oh, you didn't use so and so brand. Oh, why didn't you use this brand? Or why you mix these brands? Yeah, I mixed them because if that one was on sale 1 month and the next month the other one's on sale, that's what I'm going to get. But I just don't like, I find that a lot of people are really trying to put you down, and they give you, if they don't actually put you down, they give you that little snobby feeling like, oh, you couldn't afford better material than that, or what kind of batting you use, why didn't you get so bad? And it's, and that's kind of upsetting me because I'm finding it, and in magazines too, in magazines, that's why I think one reason I like quilting art, because people are able to kind of express their art side, but even there, it seems to be more elitist. That's the word I want to do, elitist.
Yeah.
Is the word, yeah. And that's why I try to keep our group as humble as possible. We come from humble roots, and we still that, because when we work, we save what we can, and now that we got to spend it on medicine. So we have to watch where we spend our dollars when we're buying quilting, quilting materials and threads and rotary cutter blades, because now I could not live without a rotary cutter and a ruler and a pad. So, certain things you get to like I can't live without a cell phone, whereas 10 years ago I didn't even have a cell phone.
Right, exactly. We get used to certain things. Very interesting. Well, I completely adore you. I live by your rules. Are like, just enjoy the quilting process. Don't get hung up. And I'd love for you to you told me your mom was super perfectionist, and that you decided that wasn't the way you were going to be. You were going to be enjoy the process, not get hung up on matching. That was a really important thing you said to me early on, a number of years ago, and I think it's really important. Because I think we feel really bad about ourselves when we shouldn't, because we don't meet up to some external standard.
Right, and yes, I remember my mother would constantly rip. As a matter of fact, her nickname as the cougar was the Ripper, because if it wasn't right, it had to come loose. If it wasn't right, it had to come loose. And I got so tired for a while. I wouldn't use a sewing machine because of that. And for a long time, I kind of hid my quilting because I didn't want anybody to judge it. And with my mother, I really didn't want to rip anymore. So, so I finally had to, overcome that, like, all right, Mom. Unfortunately, she died 2 years ago, but she was my quilting buddy. I don't know if I told the story. I thought she had the worst colors fabric. She had the worst colors in fabric. But what happened was, all my fabric was the same. So when she'd go buy fabric, I would tell her, hey, buy more for me. So I'd take her fabric and put with my fabric. Then we came out with a wonderful combination. That's another thing. Sometimes you have to get somebody else to buy your fabric because you tend to get the same colors, the same shades, so you got to get somebody else who's totally different from you and have them buy fabric. But now you can't go too different, because I had a son that I sent to get fabric for me because I knew he's different from me. He came back with spaceships, with cars, with roulette wheels. I said, I sent the wrong one to get material.
That's funny. That's very funny. I like that. All right. So before we end, any questions about any sort of issues that have come in terms of intellectual property, copyright, trademark, any kind of things like that I know we've talked a little bit about the work that you did, but any words or any issues that have come up in your work?
Well, it was an issue, and it with copyright was, I did a Mahalia Jackson, and the picture of Mahalia that I used found on the internet, and it didn't give who the artist or anything. So I said, well, maybe it's okay to use, because I had no artist to refer to see. But then when I was trying to put the music notes on his eye, is on the sparrow, and found out that was copyrighted. In order to use that music, that same music note, that you had to buy, the music in order to be able to use it. So little things like that we don't think about could have been a problem, because this was going into the CAC, and it was going into the gallery setting. So now my dilemma is what I do, if I don't buy Right. So what I did, I put music notes, but I put any music notes. You can't play it. It's just notes that came out my head because now I can't use those notes.
Yeah. Did you feel like you couldn't use those notes? Was that because you thought you couldn't use it, or did the CAC, did the museum not want you to do it?
No, when I went to get a copy of I went online to get a copy of the music because I was going to put it. They had on there that it was copyrighted.
Got it. And so you felt like you couldn't use it because it had copyright on it. Even though you were using it as art and just a little bit of it, not because anyone had told you couldn't. Right.
Right. I just wanted the first couple of bars of the music on the note, on the quilt.
Yeah, on the quilt. I think you could have done it. I think you could do it as, but we hadn't had that conversation because I think it's not a market replacement for the going to get it. It was just such a little bit. But just out of caution, you decided to not worry. So you did something different, didn't you?
Right. I did random music. Right. I did random music. I put a few music notes on there, but they were not the song. They were just random notes I picked so it was the music, and I put birds on it. Now, I never did find out who did. What I did was I put her picture on cloth, and I cut it in half, so it's like one half the here, one half there, and stuff in between. So I thought I could get that I would not have to do, but they didn't have a copyright. So those kind of things is if you get an image off the internet and there's no place saying who the artist is, can you use it, or do you need to find out who it is, or just what do you do, because you don't want to be caught in copyright infringement.
Well, it's complicated because even if you can't, so it's complicated, and we've talked about this before. I think there's two things. How do you get permission from an author? And then also, when can you use fair use? When is your use and different from the original meaning or the original work that you could use it without permission? And I think in your case, you were using it in a different way, and under certain circumstances, fair use allows you to do that with permission. But I think that's part of why I'm doing the work, is because I think it's really hard for artists and quilters to know when they can rely on fair use and when they can't. So that's part of what this project is about. And the quilt that you showed me of that is just such a beautiful quilt, and a little confidence on how far you can push the law may help you to do other things too in the future.
Right, because I have another one I did. I did Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful World, where I did a whirl. At that point, I didn't know anything about copyright, so I didn't know anything about copywriting. But being that everybody says "What a Wonderful World," I did. I used that and crossed my fingers that. No one says, okay, you got to buy. Because I'd buy the copyright because the quilt's done. It's been shown all over.
Right. It's shown all
over. And then maybe because, and do you think it's like it was for the Armstrong art show? Do you think that the copyright for something like that would apply when you using it in reference to him and his work?
I think it's okay too. I mean, I think that we've come a long way on that. I don't think that was true even years ago. I understand fans make things and artists make things, and there's a little bit more flexibility when you're making something that's a one-of-a-kind thing, which is what you're doing with the quilts. Now, if you were making patterns, were taking quilt and you were sending it to China to mass produce it, that might be a little bit of a different thing. But people give a lot of freedom to people that are making one-of-a-kind works. That I just think there's more freedom than artists recognize. And that's really only happened in the last few years. So, but I think that the courts have recognized that you need to be able to an homage to who you want it to be, and that that's part of your artistic creation is pull culture. bit more flexible on that than we have been, say, 10 years ago, which is interesting.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Right. In reference to that, my favorite group is Frankie Beverly and Mays, and I use I'm trying to do one of their songs in a quilt a month. I've only got one done. It's her own kind of way that I did with the figure in Mardi Gras beads. So when we had the conversation before, I said, well, I don't think I need the copyright and I put on the back tribute to Frankie Beverly and Mays and so forth. So that would kind of keep me kind of safe, huh?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that, I'll take a look at it for you. And I think that, and also, what harm are you doing? You're loving something, and it's one of a kind thing. I just think that the world doesn't really care about that as much as they might have 10 years ago. And so I think that artists have a lot more freedom because of fair use. It's complicated. I think like what you're doing most of the time, I just don't think there's a bit of a problem. And again, that's my own personal opinion. That's not legal advice. I'm not your attorney, but it's going to be like, let's say somebody did get upset with you. How much money are they going to really go to court and sue you over putting lyrics into you have to sort of think about it on the other side, like how much trouble could you get into? And it's just not really, nobody's going to care enough to sort of that effort out because again, it's they know fair use, it's their time, and there's just other craziness happening to be able to, so that the world is crazy, but it gives artists more stuff,
What I said I was doing, and this is because I want to get in touch with an area, I was going to get in touch with the people from Frankie Beverly because I want to do some other ones. But after the conversation about copyrights and stuff, I said, okay, let me stop until I can find out, what I can do. So I'm going to try to get in touch with his people. First of all, I'd like him to see the quilt, but I'm going to get in touch with his people to find out, okay, if I'm doing this, is it okay?
Yeah. Well, let's chat more before you do that so we can sort of strategize on what kind of, why you're doing it and how to talk with them in terms of, because I think you don't have to ask permission, but you might like them to know that you're doing it, and you might want to, I don't know, there's positive, think about it, but without giving up your artistic freedom to do what you want to do. Does that make sense? Like you're not really saying, please.
Right, yeah.
I want you to be aware of what I'm doing, and I would love to collaborate or, whatever. So I think that's the way to think about it, as you're a grown up and there's certain things you can do with it and there's certain things you can't. But we don't want to have them permission for everything you do because that they don't have the right to they don't have the right to tell you the permission. I mean, the law makes that decision. So just thinking about that, So,
I think I've gotten a little paranoid. I got a little paranoid about that.
Yeah. Well, let's spend some time together and chat more about it. And we're going to be putting out sort of a workbook, or like old book about. What we're trying to do is, I'm writing 2 books right now, Cely, and you'll have to read them for me. Oh. One is a super long book, and then the for like and quilt guilds like yours isn't a quilt guild, but a group where you could do one small lesson as part of your, the business side of your stuff to say, okay, we're going to learn sale doctrine. What is sale doctrine? And that in like 5 minutes, you could sort of help people understand what that is. So that's kind of the idea, is to have little bits that you could teach people. And that way, by the end of a year or so, you all would know lots about copyright. That's kind of the idea.
Right.
Very simple.
Right, because we try to do a square a month, and Edith usually does that, and she makes sure that wherever she got it from, the name of the person, the name of the book, that everything's on it, because we don't want to be, treading on hollow ground. So we kind of make sure that we do that when we, doing, I don't want to spend all the time, but I also had that, I think I might have told you about the Hawaiian quilt book that says that you could not, you could not teach or use it.
Yeah,
if you teach it to everybody in class, and I didn't know how the Hawaiian style quilt, how you could copyright that, being that it's been in perpetuity so long. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, and the question, if it's a book like out in the world book, you can't put those restrictions on it. If PDF, if it's a digital copy of it, you can put a bunch of restrictions on it, but you can't tell people you can't teach it. You can't, that's it's called copyright misuse. People buy a book and then they can do a lot of different things with the book. I mean, they can't wholesale copy it, but you can teach a book, I mean, think about it. I order case books every semester, and I teach from those books, right? So that's the part that people can't control that. And as you said, the Hawaiian quilting is a particular thing, a particular type of it or a particular pattern that's got something special. Sure, maybe, right? But not the way they're saying. No, that doesn't work, So, yeah. So there's some misinformation out there, but we're going to try our best to help out and make things a little bit better.
Yes. For people like me, yes.
For everybody. I mean, you're very sophisticated in terms of your knowledge of quilting and commissions, and you professionally, and even you don't have a complete grasp of it. And that to me seems crazy, because it will empower you to be able to do more stuff. And so that's my sort of feeling, is that like I'm here quilting, I can understand things, so I can then translate it to quilters like you who are brilliant, and others to allow you to feel more confidence in what you use in your quilting, and know when to get permission. Like most of the time, to understand the divide on your own, so.
But that seminar, I really enjoyed it. I think that everybody who was on the panel were wonderful. All the people who attended were just, it was a good group of people. It was a good group of people that I would quilt with and be with again.
Well, I appreciated you being part of it. And I guess the last thing I have to ask, because the last time I saw you was coincidentally when we were both on a train headed to Toronto in the same sleeping car, which was so insane. So I was going off to Chicago and then to New York, and you going off crazy. You are a crazy traveler. You go on these amazingly long trips, and you were off to national parks. Is that right?
Right. And when we go on vacation, I promise not to quilt. So how I get by that is I bring some material and glue with me. And whatever material I have, I don't buy any more. If I find some, And what I did was I did the Glacier, Grand Teton, Yellowstone. I still do it. I did that. I cut them out the way I wanted. I glued all the fabric. So now that I'm home, I can start quilting.
That's so great. Now, did your boyfriend know that you were quilting?
Well, no. Let me tell you what I did. I was on the counter in the bathroom gluing. And gluing on the counter there. He said, "What are you doing there?" I said, "Oh, this." I said, "My pocketbook came loose. I'm gluing it together." He said, "I thought I smelled glue." It was the Elmer. So then I had a little bag, and I showed it to him when we got home. He said, "Oh, that looks like Glacier." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you did that." I said, "Oh, I did that since we've been on line. But you can't. I don't think a quilter can do 15 days without some fabric.
I know. It's a lot. It's craziness. Very crazy. Well, I totally adore you on every level. And I'm so glad that I think that we've talked a couple of times. Weird. So I think that I think this one's going to be good to go. I'm really hoping that we can air this one and everybody gets to hear how awesome you are, because you're just one of my favorites. I love your spirit. I love your stuff. You're so cool in every way, and you make me feel better as a person. And I try to live by your rules at Quilt. I feel like all of the time. You know, really, you've really influenced who I am hugely.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all your help with with this crazy legal world that we know nothing about. I wouldn't have it even thinking it, and I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate you putting the quilted army and people together who would have never otherwise been together. I think you did a wonderful job with it, Elizabeth.
I really like the quilting army too. It's so interesting. So many different people from different backgrounds. For those listening, the quilting, we have a Facebook group called JustWannaQuilt, and then we call ourselves the Quilting Army. And they just really reminds me a lot. It's got the same kind of feel as Beecher, which is everybody gets to be who they are. There's no jing, and there's a lot of option. It's just to have more fun quilting, So
right,
it's
exactly.
been really nice. And yeah. So, all right. Well, we're going to stop. I totally adore you. I have some things that we need to talk about. We need to get together because I have this crazy idea that we've been posting about to have a big extravaganza in next June here. And so we have to start talking and seeing what we want to do with that. But I really do appreciate your time tonight, and we'll post very quickly. And thank you for your patience, because I know I've interviewed you a bunch, and we haven't got them up yet. So I appreciate that.
Okay, well, I
adore you.
I told you I thought it was wonderful, and let me know because I had some ideas.
So you've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School. And I'm Elizabeth Townsend-Gard. If you like this podcast, keep listening. Also, we have a Facebook group. Come join us. We talk about a lot of things. We also have an Instagram account. And of course, most importantly, I really hope you get a chance to quilt today.